This message is to two kinds of social toddlers. A social toddler being somebody who isn't really made to face the consequences of what they do. That's the way people treat their toddlers. They do something, you try to shield them. Of course, I wouldn't even do that to a toddler. So it's a poorly treated toddler is kind of hid from their consequences of what they do. But social toddlers, they're hid from the consequences. Two kinds of social toddlers: self-righteous black supremacist types. This is United States culture talking. Self-righteous black supremacist types, and any kind of libertarian, but I think more effectively white libertarians. So black supremacists, you social toddlers, the people who think, oh, black people are necessarily better or more moral or tougher than every white person. Better, more moral, or tougher than every white person. Social toddler, the illusion stops here if you're not too much of a coward to listen. You're not better than every white person, or black people. Not every black person is better than every white person. Go to places in Africa, there's still slavery from black people to black people. Go to places in Africa, there are black people who are raping babies because they're convinced it will cure them of their AIDS. Who is raping babies? AIDS infected black men are raping babies. So there's not this black people are just good, white people are just bad, or at least black people are better than white people. Well, those people, they were slave minded, so they've absolved of the social toddler. They're not responsible for their choices because, like, white people did something a long time ago to other black people. No, social toddler. Black supremacists, you're not better. There are plenty bad black people and plenty good white people, and reversed. Now, as to being tougher, recognize, of course, social toddler black supremacists, that you live in a culture where black people are encouraged to be mindless and aggressive. Meanwhile, the white people are encouraged, what they get rewarded for is being docile, obedient, and weak. So all the while you think you can beat any white guy's ass, here's my challenge. Not to find me and you'd fuck me up and I talk tough over the internet. Fuck off and go back to sleep. That's not the challenge, garbage ass black supremacists. The challenge is go to Russia and talk that shit. Go to Russia, thug yourself out, and talk all about how white people ain't shit, and see what happens. Weak ass Americans with no sense of self, well, specifically white Americans that you would think you're better than in every way, including tougher than. Weak ass Americans with no sense of self, and not all of them are that way, but the ones that you look at and you go, man, I'm better than that wormy ass office guy. Go to Russia. Really go to any place in Eastern Europe where people still have, well, where all people, including white people, still have self-respect, and they're not going to let you just step all over them. Anytime you wonder, will supposed black supremacy, supreme character, culture, etc., will it ever just take over and make white people just submit? Can't happen, because the sniveling white people who are just apologetic, yeah, there was slavery, so I'm a bad person because other people did something to other people. No. The reason why that won't work is simple. If you knew your enemy, white people your enemy, black supremacists, if you knew your enemy, you'd know that most of these white people, they have a story. Well, all of them have a story, of course, but most of them cannot identify with this whole, oh, I was part of a slave. Yeah, I'm responsible for slavery of my ancestors. Plenty of them are immigrants, just as plenty of black supremacists try to play that little card. They're like, you know what? The people who have it worse are the Native Americans. Y'all white people killed them. Guess what, black supremacist? If you're a slave descendant in America, your ancestors helped. Well, but they had to because they were forced. So were the white people forced. You couldn't just go against the powers that be. Your ancestors helped go against the Native Americans in that way. In fact, this will be about 3 types of social toddlers, the third one being Native Americans. But we're still on black supremacists, then I'm going to move to libertarians, then Native Americans. So you helped to annihilate, as much as I did as a white person, your ancestors helped to annihilate the Native Americans. But guess what? Plenty of white people, they, as you would say, you're just immigrants yourself, so why are you telling Mexicans to get out of town? Or get out of the country, and it's for white people. Plenty of white people aren't those people. Plenty of them are immigrants. They come from places like Russia, for example. And the only other one I'll mention is Armenia. Go those places, or deal with those people, and try to play victim and aggressor. I'm better than you, tougher than you, and I'm a victim, and I have this victim race card. Try to play that with somebody who's been through something. Learn a bit of Russian history, learn a bit of Armenian history, and you will see that black people are not the only people that have gone through something. And you cannot just trample somebody with self-righteous, self-appointed victim status if they have a heritage of having gone through some real terrible stuff. Irish, for example, Russian, Armenian, Irish. Take a look at them and simply you'll know why. It will not ever work to simply say, we're the victims, you white people are the aggressors, now let's just accept that and let's work with that as the standard. No, never work. Moreover, the second you think you're tougher than every white person, don't come looking for me and I'm tough over the internet. Fuck off. Go and say that shit in Russia. Because plenty of these black supremacists, self-righteous types will be like, come to the hood and say that shit. Chirp, chirp. Go to the hood in Russia and say that shit. Go mobbing with your pants down and with your gun cocked sideways. And see how long it takes somebody, not even necessarily from the Russian mafia, but see how long it takes somebody to straighten you up for good. That's it. I mean, it's just you're a social toddler and you're not held to actually think about that. Second kind of social toddler, that's the black supremacist. Social toddlers, any libertarian, but especially white libertarians, because it's an even more effective point. You white libertarians who, for example, are for securing the borders, if you're in America, learn English. It's not a national language. It's an official language. And in many places, Spanish is also an official language now. We don't have a national language. So make it a national language, that'd be fine, but it's not. So this whole thing about things should stay as they are. Conservatism in general. We should conserve things as they are. Libertarians saying like, you know what, just free market, everybody, they have what they have, moving on from here. Go to China, where you don't know the language. Well, no, this is where fate has put me, and this is where I belong, and now I'm one of the haves, and so we should keep things as they are. And you Mexicans should just learn this garbage-ass language, English, which is a garbage language that doesn't make sense. Just learn it and start from nothing and work as a slave, and in 10 generations, maybe you guys can have self-respect. Like I said, you coward-ass libertarians, especially white libertarians, and there's a reason for it being white, because you're more likely to be better off because of being white. I'm the first to say that we have a nation built on slavery, maintained with slavery, have modern day slavery. I'm the first to say, though, that white people aren't necessarily, oh, you're white there, you're in the in crowd. No, white people were treated plenty terrible. Remember Irish, for example. However, you didn't have institutionalized racism against you. You had institutionalized prejudice as a poor person coming up, whatever. You didn't have institutionalized prejudice. So as a white person and as somebody well off, now you say, okay, everything's good now. Let's have libertarianism now, and let's have everything, I worked for what I had, chirp, chirp, chirp. No, because if you were born a Mexican, you wouldn't be a libertarian saying, oh no, everything's cool, starting now. Oh, I know a libertarian Mexican, yeah. And that's an exceptional person who happened to somehow get in good. And now they want to say, come on, Mexicans that are more of the indigenous look, and so they have all kinds of setbacks in America. Just get up on your feet and succeed. We're libertarians now. It's not effective. Like I said, the way to test this, just go to China. You're so great, it's your character that's you did this. You did this, and why should the government take its cut and redistribute the wealth? Then go to China and just build out of nothing. You don't know the language. You don't know the customs, but just do it because you're a good person. It's your character that's built this little pissant monument to yourself, making a bit of change off of the table of plenty from the ruling elites who keep people divided and conquered. It's so yourself. Go to another country. I mean, China would be a great one because they're booming. Things are on the up and up. They're taking over a lot of American industry. Go to China with your inherent value and just do it there. Of course, the point is that it has nothing to do with your inherent value. It has to do with you didn't have certain roadblocks because you're white. There's a great picture of white people climbing up a ladder and a black guy in the middle with broken rungs and like, hey, come on, climb this ladder. Because of that, and just the luck of the draw, I'm working hard, sure, but it's not enough to say, hey, everybody's like me. They should all just kind of get up, get on their feet. Do it in China, and that would be impressive. So again, we got the black supremacists that just go to Russia with that shit And yeah, go mob on them. See how that works. Go Lil Wayne style on them. Garbage ass. Then we have white libertarians. Go to China and just be so inherently useful and intelligent. No, you're lucky enough to know the language. Plenty of these Mexicans fleeing from modern day atrocities aren't so lucky. Well, you know what? Get up on your feet. Maybe next lifetime. You're just garbage ass people, is my point. I know there's no thug ass black supremacist going to go to Russia because that takes actual courage and strength. And these people are cowards, social toddlers who aren't made to actually put up or shut up. Likewise, white libertarians, they don't really believe in libertarian principle. They believe in just amassing and keeping themselves, doing what's good for them. Okay, everyone believes in that to some extent. You just go haywire thinking libertarianism is this just system. Go make it work in China or any other place where you don't have a huge step up from other people. And lastly, and to a relatively lower extent, Native Americans, which of course is ridiculous because the native side, saying native makes it the self-righteous. We were here first. And so that's kind of ridiculous. I'll get to why. But the American side is even weirder. Of course, most Native Americans only use the term Native American to buy into the popular consensus because they don't care about reality. They just want to get money and get pity. Because America is a shout out to Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian cartographer. Guy made maps, and somebody just said, "Oh, it's America." Amerigo Vespucci. So no, the big problem I have is when you hear someone say, "Oh, these are Indians." They're not Indians. That's Christopher Columbus thinking he was in the Indies. They're not Indians. They're Native Americans. Okay, so for one thing, like I said, Native is just the self-righteous term, and American is a shout out to Amerigo Vespucci. If you don't know the name of the tribe, then you're no better than someone calling them Indians. They're not Native Americans. They are this tribe or that tribe. That is their nation. Furthermore, though, self-righteous First Nationers, they call them First Nation in Canada, and here in the United States, the Native Americans or any you First Tribes, all this self-righteous foolishness. Two problems I got. One is all the slovenliness with the casinos. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. We don't have casinos, and you're just generalizing. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what I'm not talking about. Those who are slovenly, gluttonous, and living off casinos, living off whose entire system depends on greed, you get what you deserve, which is this mess. But also the self-righteousness of we were here first. You don't know that. For one thing, it's pretty much accepted by everyone except for young earthers that we all came from Africa, Fertile Crescent and whatnot. So just because you from this given nation or that given nation of Aboriginal people in the Western Hemisphere, just because you didn't keep good enough documentation, your ancestors didn't keep documentation of when they migrated, doesn't mean we were just here. So starting from there, no one should come over. You came across Bering Strait, all that stuff? No, we're not just, well, the real people who own this land were the Native Americans. You should get out. No, they didn't own the land. They showed up through the Bering Strait or any other kind of way. Let's just start it then. Of course, that's ridiculous, but that's the side you don't hear. The social toddlers who fight for Native Americans and the Native Americans themselves, and I'm just using that term now, even though it's very inaccurate. They say, you white people want to keep Mexicans out. Well, the fact is, you stole it from us. No. You just on down the line. No land has been occupied without taking it from somewhere, at least taking it from the animals that were there before. If we're not making any kind of value judgments, y'all just came across from Asia and whatnot and stole it from the poor animals. Vikings were here first. Y'all hear all this stuff. Simply put, the social toddlers that are Native Americans saying, get out of our land. White people, go back to Europe. Okay, then you go back to the Fertile Crescent. And I should go back to the Fertile Crescent. Meanwhile, and this is the last I was saying this, because this is just about three types of social toddlers. Black supremacists who will never say that shit in Russia. White libertarians who will never go off to China and just build up with their fortitude there. And self-righteous, gluttonous, slobbish Native Americans. Now, if you're not self-righteous, slobbish, and gluttonous, I'm not talking about you. Oh, what about the noble, this people over here who don't have a casino? Good, that's great. I am talking about who I'm talking about. Slobby-ass Native Americans whose whole Wealth depends on the worst in people. Greed. It's disgusting. So you three types of social toddlers, all of you, just go back to sleep.